There is a silent pain that few admit, the pain of being ignored, the pain of being the last option. You feel it, that frustration, that desperate need for someone to just see you, for someone to just acknowledge your existence. Imagine for a moment, you're at a crowded party trying to join a conversation, but people turn their backs, change the subject, and you're left there with a forced smile, feeling the invisible weight of irrelevance. Or at work, where you contribute ideas in meetings but they are ignored, as if your words were echoes in a void. This pain doesn't scream, it erodes from within, undermining your confidence, making you question your worth. And to fill that void, you start to do the unthinkable. You start to beg for attention, not with direct words, but with subtle actions that reveal desperation. An extra comment on a post, an unnecessary phone call, an unrequested favor. You go out of your way to please. You tell the funniest joke even if no one laughs. You like every photo. You initiate every conversation. You become the attention giver, hoping, in return, for a single crumb of recognition. But here is the brutal truth. The world doesn't reward desperation. It punishes it. The world doesn't value what is readily available. It discards it. Think of how a product on constant sale loses its appeal. In the same way, your excessive attention becomes cheap, common, unwanted, because your need for attention is a sign of weakness that people can feel. And Machiavelli, the master of human nature, understood this. He knew that power is not in having, power is in being desired. Niccolò Machiavelli, born in 1469 in Florence, a city-state steeped in political conspiracies, civil wars, and fragile alliances, served as a diplomat for the Florentine Republic. He witnessed the rise and fall of the Medici, observed figures like Cesare Borgia, who commanded respect not through unlimited generosity, but through a calculated scarcity of favors and presents. Exiled and tortured, Machiavelli wrote The Prince as a survival manual, emphasizing that love is fleeting, but fear, or the craving for something rare, is enduring. Applied to modern emotional interactions where social media amplifies desperation, this means that begging for attention is like a prince begging for loyalty. He loses the throne to more cunning rivals. And today, we will unearth the Machiavellian rule of emotional scarcity, the only way to no longer have to beg for attention. This rule is not about cold isolation. It's about strategy, about making your presence a coveted prize, inspired by Machiavellian observations that humans value what is difficult to obtain. We will dissect this step by step, starting with the signs that betray you as an emotional supplicant, moving on to the principles that rebuild your internal value, and arriving at the practical tactics that reverse the power dynamic. Along the way, we will incorporate historical examples that echo to this day, psychological analyses based on studies of attachment and social dynamics, and philosophical reflections that invite you to question, why beg when you can be begged? There are 7 clear signs that you are begging for attention. If you recognize yourself in any of them, stop. Now. These signs are not harmless. They are chains that bind you to a vicious cycle of rejection and self-devaluation, eroding your personal authority and making you predictable, manipulable, and worse, disposable in the eyes of others. Each sign is a subtle manifestation of emotional desperation, and recognizing them is the first step to breaking the pattern. Let's dive into each one in depth, illustrating with everyday examples you can relate to, historical stories of figures who fell or rose by avoiding them, psychological analyses that explain the cerebral and social mechanisms behind them, and profound reflections that encourage honest, transformative self-assessment. Sign number 1. The continuous. Hello. You are always the first to start a conversation. In the WhatsApp group, in the message to your partner, in the email to your boss. Your life is a series of unanswered hellos. And every time you send a new message, you are actually saying, please don't ignore me. Please see me. You have become an emotional beggar. Think of an everyday example. You send, hey, how are you? To a distant friend who rarely replies. And when the silence persists, you follow up with, I saw you posted something cool yesterday. What did you think? This is not friendly persistence, it's subtle stalking, revealing a dependency that repels. Historically, consider King Louis XVI of France during the French Revolution. He initiated desperate alliances with nobles and assemblies, begging for support in letters and meetings, but his need made him seem weak, leading to his execution by the guillotine, while more reserved figures like Robespierre gained power. Psychologically, this activates the reciprocity bias in reverse. People feel an initial obligation, but soon develop resentment because they perceive a power imbalance, as shown in studies by Robert Cialdini on social influence. The recipient's brain interprets this as manipulation, releasing cortisol, the stress hormone, instead of dopamine, pleasure. Deep reflection. Why do you always initiate? Because you fear silence, but silence is the space where true power is built. It's the vacuum that draws others to fill it. Stop for a week. Do not initiate contact and observe how some people come back revealing genuine loyalty, while others disappear, freeing you from toxic connections. This pause may be uncomfortable at first, but it is the birth of self-sufficiency. Sign: the desperation for likes. Your self-esteem has become a count of hearts and thumbs up. You post photos more frequently. You change your caption. You delete the post that didn't get enough attention. You have become a slave to a metric that means nothing. Your value is not in the hands of strangers on a screen. Imagine checking your phone every 5 minutes after an Instagram post, your heart racing with each notification, or the lack thereof, adjusting filters or reposting to improve engagement. This is a pure dopamine addiction, where each like is an ephemeral dose of validation. Curious history. The Roman Emperor Caligula demanded constant applause at public spectacles, forcing senators to praise him under threat, but his desperate need made him hated and led to his assassination by conspirators who saw weakness in his insecurity. Psychological analysis. Studies on social media, such as those from Harvard University, show that the excessive search for external validation activates the nucleus accumbens, the brain's reward center, but leads to cycles of depression when not met, creating an addiction similar to gambling. Deep reflection. How many times have you edited a caption or deleted a post for lack of likes? Machiavelli would say this is like a prince giving away gold for free. It devalues the treasure. Instead, make your online presence scarce. Post with strategic purpose, such as sharing real achievements, and the likes will come as a consequence, not as a desperate goal. Try a digital diet. Post once a week, focus on quality, and watch your self-esteem detach from the metrics. Sign number 3, the panic of rejection. You send a message and don't get an immediate response. What happens? You panic. Your mind fills with questions. What did I do wrong? Do they hate me? Should I send another message? This panic is a sign that your value is in someone else's hands. Machiavelli wouldn't panic. He would give a cold smile and plan his next move. Current example. In dating apps like Tinder, you see read and you freak out, sending more texts to save the conversation, turning curiosity into desperation. Historically, princes like Henry IV of France, who panicked at diplomatic rejections from European allies, lost crucial negotiations, while Machiavelli advised calculated patience. Psychologically, this is linked to avoidant attachment anxiety, according to John Bowlby's theories, where the fear of abandonment amplifies the perception of rejection, releasing adrenaline and clouding rational judgment. Deep reflection. Panic reveals an emotional dependency that Machiavelli saw as fatal for leaders. He preached fortuna, controlled by virtu, that is, internal virtue that ignores external whims. Cultivate indifference by practicing mindfulness. When panic arises, breathe and ask, does this define my worth? Over time, rejection loses its poison, making you magnetic. Sign number 4, the exposure of personal problems. You use your tragedies, your pains, and your problems as bait to attract attention and sympathy. You share dramas so people will say, poor thing. But pity, my friend, is the enemy of respect. You are, in fact, trading power for pity. And pity does not build an empire. Think about posting about a traumatic layoff or a family fight on Facebook, hoping for supportive comments that mask the search for validation. Curious history. Joan of Arc, the peasant who led French armies, exposed spiritual vulnerabilities in interrogations, but was betrayed and burned by those who saw her as emotionally weak. Psychological analysis. Pity activates empathy circuits in others' brains, but erodes social status, as in Dominic Infante's hierarchy studies, where chronic victims are seen as inferior. Deep reflection. Saving pains to process alone is Machiavellian. Transform them into fuel for action, not bait for pity. Share only polished victories and respect will flourish. Sign number 5, passive-aggressive behavior. You use phrases like, "It seems you're too busy for me," or, "Well, I guess I'll just stay here alone." This is not a request for attention, it's manipulation. And when people realize they are being manipulated, they don't give you what you want. They give you what you deserve: indifference. Example, in friend groups, posting stories with captions like, "Alone again as always," to fish for responses. History. Cleopatra avoided this, manipulating Caesar and Antony with direct cunning, not passive aggression, maintaining power. Psychologically, passive aggression activates defense mechanisms, breaking trust, as in Paul Watzlawick's communication theories. Reflection. Be direct or silent. Cheap manipulation costs dearly in lost respect. Sign number 6, the helper without limits. You are always available to everyone. You're the guy who always says yes to a favor. You do favors no one asked for, just to feel needed. You have become a tool, an object. And tools don't get respect. They are used, and when they break, they are discarded. Think of being the friend in need who solves others' problems at midnight. History. Shakespeare's King Lear divided his kingdom out of desperate affection, but was discarded by ungrateful daughters. Analysis. Unbalanced reciprocity creates resentment, as in behavioral economics experiments. Reflection. Help selectively. Become indispensable through scarcity, not abundance. Sign number 7, the search for conflict. If you can't get positive attention, you seek negative attention. You create drama. You provoke fights. Because for your desperate mind, any attention is better than no attention. But attention born of conflict builds nothing. It only destroys. And a man who destroys to be noticed will never be respected. Example, starting controversial discussions online for engagement. History. Nero provoked fires and scandals for notoriety, but fell into disgrace. Psychologically, it is negative reinforcement of attention, as in behavioral disorders. Reflection. Channel energy into productive creation, not reactive destruction. The antidote is not to become a monster, it is to become a force. The solution lies in a radical change in your life philosophy. It is understanding that your value is not given, it is built. Let's look at the Machiavellian principles of emotional scarcity. Principle number 1, the law of emotional self-sufficiency. Your validation is not on a phone screen or in someone else's approval. Your validation is in you, your happiness, your purpose, your peace of mind. All of this must come from within. When you become your own source of energy, you no longer need to steal energy from others. Historical example, Steve Jobs cultivated periods of solitude to innovate at Apple, ignoring external criticism. Psychological analysis, this builds neural resilience, activating the prefrontal cortex for self-control. Reflection, practice solo hobbies, such as reading or exercise to internalize value. Principle number 2, the art of disappearance. Machiavelli said that the prince should know when to be the lion and when to be the fox. The fox knew when to hide. Your absence is what creates value. When you stop begging for attention, you force the world to miss you. When you withdraw from the stage, all eyes turn to where you were. History. Catherine the Great would disappear from court to plan reforms, returning more powerful. Analysis. Absence activates curiosity, releasing oxytocin in the other person. Reflection. Disappear from social media for days and see contacts return. Principle number 3, the scarcity principle. People value what is scarce. Think of gold, of diamonds. They are valued because they are rare, Your time, your attention, your presence. They are limited resources. Stop giving them away for free. Become a rare resource. Become a diamond, not a grain of sand, and they will desire you. Example: luxury brands like Hermes limit handbags to create desire. Analysis: scarcity activates the brain's reward system. Reflection: ration responses make meetings events. Philosophy is useless without action. Here are the practical tactics to master your narrative and never beg for attention again. Tactic number 1: the zero response. If someone gives you a minimal response, an okay or a yes, do not reply. Silence is your best weapon. Let the absence of your response linger in the air. This will force them to ask themselves, "What did I do wrong?" And for the first time, the balance of power will be in your favor. Variation: in emails, ignore short replies. Example: in flirting, stop responding to one-word answers and watch the other person make an effort. Tactic number 2: the strategic disappearance. Stop initiating contact with people who don't reciprocate your energy. Let the friendship or relationship cool down. If they care, they will come to you. If they don't, you have saved your time and your heart. This is not a childish game. It's a tactic of self-preservation. History: exiled leaders like Napoleon returned stronger after absences. Analysis: creates FOMO, fear of missing out. Tactic number 3: the internal focus. Instead of worrying about what others are doing, focus on yourself. Invest in your health, in your career, in your projects. Build a life that is so interesting that your attention becomes valuable. Your attention will no longer be on others, and the irony of life is that they will start to seek your attention. Example: Elon Musk focuses on visions, attracting attention. Analysis: activates a state of flow, per Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Tactic number 4: the doctrine of calculated reciprocity. Starting today, you are a mirror. Give exactly what you receive. If someone gives you 5% of their attention, give 5% back. If someone gives you 100%, you give 100%. You are no longer a source of energy to be drained. You are a reflection. Example: Machiavellian diplomatic negotiations with the Medici. Variation: in friendships, match efforts. Why all this harshness? Why Machiavelli? Because the cost of your need for attention is not your time. The cost is your power. It's your respect. It's your position in the world. The man of power understands that in the game of life, the only thing that matters is perception, and your need is the perception that you have nothing. The Machiavellian rule of emotional scarcity is the path to ultimate freedom, the freedom of not needing anyone's approval, the freedom of being the master of your own destiny. So from today on, the choice is yours. Continue begging for attention or become a master of your own narrative. Never, under any circumstances, beg for attention. Apply these lessons, reflect on your past interactions, and watch as the world begins to orbit around you.